of what we're talking about and refrain from asking questions that speculate or get into the political dynamic of the case. For Utah County, this is a murder case, and we're trying a murder case. We're trying to keep the questions to that, but I understand that you're under pressure and have a lot of different questions, and we'll try to answer them. We're joined today by our sheriff and our prosecution team and our county commissioners. Jeff is going to be the only one speaking right now, and I'll introduce right now County Attorney Jeff Gray.
The murder of Charlie Kirk is an American tragedy. Charlie Kirk was murdered while engaging in one of our most sacred and cherished American rights, the bedrock of our democratic republic, the free exchange of ideas in a search for truth, understanding, and a more perfect union. It is also an offense against the state and to the peace and enjoyment of the people of Utah and of all those who visit here. But Charlie Kirk's murder also strikes a more personal and intimate chord. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a father to two beautiful young children. He was a son, he was a brother, and a friend. Like all murders, the senseless and needless taking of Charlie Kirk's life has shattered the lives of those he loved and those who loved him. To Charlie's wife, Erica, his two young children, his parents, his family, and his friends, I express my sincere condolences and offer my heartfelt prayers on your behalf. I also want to express my concern for everyone who was at Charlie's Turning Point USA event at the Utah Valley University, and all who have been impacted by this tragedy. As county attorney, I am charged with bringing justice to those who offend our laws. I am charged with bringing justice for those who are harmed. I am charged with bringing justice for Charlie Kirk. I am committed to these aims. I take this responsibility seriously. Today, after reviewing the evidence that law enforcement has collected thus far, I am filing a criminal information charging Tyler James Robinson, age 22, with the following crimes. Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital offense, for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression and did so knowing that children were present and would witness the homicide. The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts. Count 6, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor, for committing homicide knowing that children were present and may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression. Also, following the press conference, I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently as county attorney, based solely on the available evidence and circumstances and nature of the crime. Because we are seeking the death penalty, the defendant will continue to be held without bail in the Utah County Jail. Turning to the 10-page information, these are the allegations. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, and told his roommate to delete incriminating text messages and not talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. The shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist famous for these type of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with the crowd before the event officially got underway. Then, at approximately noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is still pending. So UVU surveillance. So at the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UV officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop, consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in the center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railway off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. Expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained one spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shootings. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was etched, "No Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this?" The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last 3 were not spent, were not fired. The second, "Hey Fascist," catch with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, "Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao." The fourth cartridge, "If you read this, you are gay," LMAO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with defendant was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. The Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated that the following to police. On September 11, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick, and that he had also been at homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. The search for Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several target boards with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Now, as I stated in the beginning, when I read those allegations, these are allegations. And like the evidence set forth in this statement, those allegations, what you've heard from the media, even from state and federal officials, has not been tested in the crucible of a jury trial. I understand the public's desire to know the facts. My own family members have pressed me for information. Why are we reluctant to share the details of the investigation itself and comment on the case? Because I want to ensure a fair and impartial trial. I became a prosecutor because of my love for the ideals of this great country and the principles embedded in our Constitution. The free exchange of ideas and opinions is critical to this great American experiment, but so too are the protections afforded to the accused found in the Fifth and Sixth Amendments: the right against self-incrimination, the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to the effective assistance of counsel, the right to confront one's accusers, and the right to compel the attendance of witnesses. And perhaps most importantly, under our Constitution, the accused is presumed innocent until we, the state, prove to an impartial jury of defendant's peers his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That jury cannot rely on our allegations, on what they hear in the news, or on what they hear from a public official. The jury is the sole trier of fact, and they will ultimately determine those facts based on evidence a trial judge has determined is admissible. Again, as prosecutors, we bear the burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But make no mistake, we welcome this burden. I'd like to now introduce my trial team who will be charged with prosecuting the case. This is a veteran and expert team of some of the state's best trial attorneys. Chad Grunander, who is one of my two chief deputies, Ryan McBride and David Sturgill on the far right there. And those two were very much involved in preparing search warrants, did a phenomenal job, worked day and night to see that accomplished well after he was, Robinson was taken into custody. Also, Lauren Hunt, she is one of our special victims prosecutors, and Chris Ballard, my second chief deputy, who will be handling motions. I'm going to explain just the procedural steps. We're not a grand jury. We don't have a grand jury system like the federal courts do. It's a preliminary hearing system. So the arrest and filing of the criminal information are merely the first steps in the criminal justice process. Today at 3 p.m., the defendant will appear before a judge in the Utah 4th District Court for his first appearance to be informed of these charges and to ensure that he has an attorney to represent him. The hearing will be brief. The judge will conduct that first appearance virtually via WebEx. This is not unusual. In the 4th District, all felony first appearances for defendants who are in custody are held virtually. A link to that hearing is available for media on the Utah State Court's X account at Utah State Courts. Now, following defendant's first appearance, he will be entitled to a preliminary hearing. At that hearing, the state will be required to show probable cause that defendant committed the crimes. The purpose of the preliminary hearing is not to determine guilt. but simply to assure the court that the prosecution has enough evidence to proceed to trial. If a judge finds probable cause and binds the case over for trial, an arraignment hearing will be held. At that hearing, a judge will again inform defendant of the charges against him and require him to enter a plea to each charge. The next step following the arraignment is an opportunity for the parties to file any relevant motions and then ultimately the trial itself. This case has generated a tremendous amount of interest across our nation and even the world. The public's desire for information is understandable, but it bears reiterating that this case will be tried in a court of law consistent with our Constitution, not the court of public opinion. Thus, we will only discuss the case with the press occasionally. It will not be a day-to-day or even week-to-week occurrence, but we will only do so in a manner as not to jeopardize the fair trial process. Before I conclude, I want to express my appreciation for the tireless work of our local, state, and federal law enforcement officers. They have an extremely difficult, dangerous, and often thankless job. I'm proud to acknowledge the exceptional work they do every day, and particularly their work on this case. It was truly a marvel to witness. Their skilled work and dedication have brought us to this point. I'm also grateful for the leadership demonstrated by Bo Mason, the Commissioner of the Utah Department of Public Safety, FBI Special Agent in Charge Rob Bowles, Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith, our local police chiefs, and Felice John Vitti, the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Utah. I'm also grateful for the support of our Governor, Spencer Cox, and our Attorney General, Derek Brown, who is standing behind me today and has offered his support and resources as we proceed to trial. Finally, I want to thank our Utah County Commissioners, Amelia Powers Gardner, Brandon Gordon, and Skylar Beltran. They too have pledged to assist with the resources needed to successfully prosecute this case. I will now take a few questions.
For questions, ladies and gentlemen, just really fast, if you could identify yourself and what organization.
From CBS.
Thank you.
Okay.
Investigation uncover any individuals that may have known about this shooting in advance.
They are still looking into it. It's an undergoing investigation.
So is that a possibility?
They haven't ruled that out.
Attorney Kirk. Ed Lavendera with CNN. The text message that you exchanged with your roommate, can you kind of give us a sense of, did that happen over several hours? Did it happen before?
I don't have that information.
Emily Anderson, Stern, the Salt Lake Tribune. I know, acknowledging that you made this decision to pursue the death penalty independently, did you hear it all from the Trump administration or Governor Cox's administration as you were working on these charges?
I talked to officials from both administrations, but I was not pressured to make a decision. I understood their feelings on it because it was in the news, but we didn't really discuss that.
Mr. Gray, the FBI director. Do you have any indication that transgender issues played a role in the motivations for this shooter?
I'm going to stick to what I just stated in my public, in our information. I think that is pretty much set forth there.
Mr. Gray, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News. Just asking, are you planning to file additional charges against anyone else in connection with this?
Again, we don't have any information at this point of additional suspects, but I know that our law enforcement agencies are continuing to follow leads.
Mr. Gray, the FBI director today said that you are, quote, or that other people, a number of people are being investigated and interrogated. So it seems that there are people who might be up for possible charges.
Yeah, I'm not.
The suspect was a lone wolf, or could this be part of a...
I can't comment on that. I'm not aware of all their investigation. I just know that these agencies are continuing to investigate this case and follow all leads.
BBC News Times would like to know, how does this possibly interface with any federal charges?
That's up to the feds. They have different charges, and they're reviewing the evidence, and after they review the evidence and the law, they could file charges, but I'm not privy to exactly what they're looking at.
Dennis, Helfie, with the BBC, you spoke a lot about text messages with the roommate. The governor previously said the roommate is cooperating, but could we see charges against the roommate?
Again, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Mr. Gray, is it unusual to cite a political motivation as an aggravating circumstance?
It's part of our code, and so we charge that.
Mr. Gray, just you at KUTV, for those that aren't of a legal mind, is this a confession, the text messages? Is that legally a confession? And is he cooperating since he's been taken into custody? Ultimately, a judge will determine that at trial. And cooperation, has he spoken at all? Has he been cooperating?
Again, I'm not going to comment on that.
Has he made any statements at all?
Mr. Gray, Morgan Chesney, NBC News.
Okay.
What more can you tell us about the suspect's time online that some say radicalized him?
I am not aware of that information. That's, again, still under investigation.
And has he expressed any remorse so far about this attack?
I am not going to comment on that.
Is he continuing to not cooperate?
I am not going to comment on that.
Mr. Gray, the FBI director has been way out in front in terms of presenting evidence to the public. Your team has been very circumspect, very measured in what they've laid out. Has that hampered your investigation and your ability to do this?
Well, as attorneys, we typically like to control that information to preserve an impartial jury and a fair trial.
So has he made a repudiation? Is he a lawyer yet?
Excuse me?
Does the suspect have a lawyer?
I don't have that information.
Can you tell us more about what the family may have said in interviews?
What the family said is what I provided.
Mr. Gray, do you anticipate that the defense will try to get this trial moved out of Utah County, and how will you respond to that?
That from where?
From Utah County.
That the defense will be from Utah County?
That they will try to get the trial moved to different locations.
I couldn't predict what they're going to do.
Is there any evidence to suggest that the timing of the shot and the question that was asked about mass shooting transgender, is that more than coincidence?
That will be for a jury to decide.
Mr. Gray, are you confident that the roommate had no part of this attack whatsoever?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the evidence.
But the evidence so far, does it show any involvement?
Again, I'm not going to comment on other than the facts that or the evidence that we've gathered so far.
The suspension of the DNA here in the press conference jeopardized his right to a fair trial?
I don't believe so. This is part of a public document that we have to file as we file a criminal information. We have to file a probable cause statement. That's a public document, and so we're comfortable with that.
Are his parents and the roommate still cooperating?
I'm not going to comment on that either.
The FBI has said that this suspect had a hatred of Kirk. What else can you share about that?
I can't share any more than what I've already said.
This was an incredibly precise shot. Do you have any evidence that he went places to practice or have tracked his movements before the shooting that's given you insight into how he prepared?
The evidence that I'm willing to share is what I just read in our statement, and it's in the information.
I'm afraid we're going to have to cut it off there.
Okay.
Did you consult Eric Kirk about seeking the death penalty?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
There you have it. Jeff Gray, Utah County District Attorney, the attorney there for the county, laying out methodically what he says will be part of a public document. He said they have to lay out probable cause in a statement, and so he's comfortable with the information shared with the public here today. In talking about the suspect, Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, from St. George, Utah, the attorney pointing out that they will seek 7 counts. The first count, aggravated murder. The second count, felony discharge of a firearm. The third count, obstruction of justice. Count 4, obstruction as well. Count 5, witness tampering, along with count 6. And count 7 involves having committed this crime allegedly in front of a child. The attorney for the county there going on to say that it is my intention to move forward and to seek the death penalty. He then laid out what he said he had to lay out in this public document as a part of the evidence for these charges moving forward. And we learned some additional details, obviously, from our investigative reporting so far on this story. First of all, the shot, he said, was from about 160 yards from Charlie Kirk at that university, that the suspect gained access to the university at 11:51 a.m., entered campus, that they studied the surveillance cameras, which of course we've been reporting out for a series of several days here, that he arrived there with that black shirt on, the flag on the front, his head down most of the time, wearing a hat and sunglasses, an unusual gait, which we have reported here on ABC News, that authorities say that gait, walking in a very sort of different kind of way, was because he was hiding the rifle allegedly in his pants. We learned that this was a rifle that was given to him, according to authorities here, again, allegedly given to him by the family. And in fact, in the text messages offered by the county attorney here today, the suspect, it would appear, revealed that that gun once belonged to his grandfather, actually saying, "What would my dad make of not getting this gun back?" Talked about the rifle, that there was just one spent round, one bullet fired. Talked about the inscription, which we had reported on already here on ABC News, on each of those cartridges. He also offered new information, new insight into the family of Mr. Robinson, the suspect here. Tyler Robinson's mother, according to the county attorney, was the person who saw the image released to the public, some of these images from surveillance, and believed this looked like her son. She then engaged her husband on this, who agreed with her. They reached out to their son, to Tyler Robinson, who allegedly, according to the county attorney today, told his mother, "I'm homesick, and I was homesick yesterday," which would have been the day of the crime. That's what he told his mother. The county attorney then offering text exchanges between Tyler Robinson, the suspect, and his roommate, went down a litany of messages. But among the key messages, and there'll be a number of them, obviously, that are significant in any trial moving forward. But one of those messages to the roommate from the suspect, he allegedly writes, "I was hoping to keep this a secret until I died in old age." And the county attorney laid out in a very public form today, in a manner, I should say, that the suspect, Tyler Robinson, when asked by his family, and again, this is according to the Utah County attorney, when asked by his family, "Why did you do this?" and when asked by the roommate, "Why did you do this?" His answer in both situations, it would appear, according to the county attorney, was because he believed Charlie Kirk, some of the rhetoric was too hateful. And again, those aren't his precise words, but that's what he cited to his parents and to his roommate. And of course, the county attorney laying out at the very beginning of this press conference that Charlie Kirk was killed while engaging in one of the cherished American rights, and that is the free exchange of ideas. That attorney saying he's fully aware that the country is watching this case very closely. So that is a summary of a lot of the news that was made here in this press conference this afternoon. Jeff Gray, Utah County attorney. I want to bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who is watching right along with me. And Pierre, in addition, they discussed the DNA picked up on some of this evidence, that screwdriver, of course, the towel that was used to wrap the rifle, which was discovered in the woods, and also this news that it was the mother of Tyler Robinson who believed, "This looks like my son." They said she then talked to her husband and that he agreed with her.
Indeed, David. Here are some of the things that struck me about this press conference, which I would say was riveting in its sadness. They pointed out the way that Mr. Kirk died. They also pointed out the fact that the bullet whizzed by the questioner. It was very close to the questioner and other people, so that's how dangerous the situation was. We learned new information about the DNA evidence that they believe ties them to the scene, that Tyler Robinson's DNA was found on the trigger of the gun that they believed was used in the attack, also on the cartridges themselves. And David, as you pointed out, the ordeal of the family, of the mother, looking at the photograph and the images that were released, thinking it was her son, calling her son, him allegedly saying that he was homesick, then turning to the father who agreed that it looked like the son, him following up with the son as well. I just can imagine the drama as it played out for that family and their critical role in this, David.
Especially because we have reported here, Pierre, that their son was a fairly good student, that this family was somewhat connected, and that they had a dinner, a gathering, not long before this awful day unfolded right there in Utah, where the family allegedly has told authorities that he became more political in recent times, left-leaning politically, in which at one dinner they actually talked about Charlie Kirk.
Indeed, David. They appear to be living the quintessential American family life. Mother and father, close family, family meetings, dinners, and that's why they engaged him in the way that he did. It's clear that they said that there had been changes in the past few months and weeks where he'd become more left-leaning in their words, according to authorities today. And clearly, the relationship with the roommate, authorities, I'm told, are examining that in terms of the roommate who was transitioning from male to female, according to authorities, and his belief that Charlie Kirk, in their words, was sowing hate.
Pierre Thomas in our Washington Bureau. Let's get right to the room. And Matt Gutman, who asked a couple of those questions you saw at that news conference. Matt, again, the Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray saying what I laid out here today is what I would have had to file publicly anyway, indicated that he was very comfortable with the information he revealed here today.
And I think he feels like he has a lot of information. I think you and Pierre both noted it. There is what they say is the DNA on the trigger of the murder weapon, those text messages, the other evidence that they've managed to gather from the scene. It's pretty damning. But what was very interesting about how Attorney Gray phrased this is that this is a suspect who in this system is still presumed innocent until we prove to a jury his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He's very much trying to play by the rules here. And I asked him specifically about FBI Director Kash Patel sort of getting out in front of this investigation, revealing some of these key details that we've been talking about, that this group here in Utah, the DPS, the Department of Public Safety, has been very, very circumspect, trying to keep it close to the vest. He said, well, it doesn't exactly help us. We typically like to have more control over that information. It was sort of an oblique swipe at the director, but it does seem that they have a pretty significant amount of information. The other thing that stood out to me, David, is those text messages. I don't know if we have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was Tyler Robinson, the man you speak of, now facing the death penalty. Jeff Gray, the Utah attorney, making that clear. Our thanks to Matt Gutman. A couple of key points that he was asked right at the end of the presser. Mr. Gray, did anyone else know about this? Has not been ruled out, he said. Is the suspect cooperating? He said he would not speak to that. Asked about the family as well. Also said he would not speak to that. Asked if he was remorseful. No comment on that. These are all questions the public likely very interested in as well. I want to bring in Catherine Falders with just a few moments left. Catherine, these text messages will figure large in this trial.
Yeah, they sure will. We got a glimpse, of course, into this digital footprint and all of these messages exchanged with this roommate. Of course, he talked about a note under his keyboard that police found a photograph of. It said specifically, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. At the end of that press conference, they obviously wouldn't answer questions about whether that roommate, David, was still cooperating.
All right, Catherine Falders, our thanks to you as well. We're going to be back on the air for Tyler Robinson's court appearance. It will be a virtual appearance, which, as you heard from the county attorney, is normal in this jurisdiction. It's scheduled for about 5 p.m. Eastern. Our coverage will continue ABC News Live, and when we see that, I'll be back on the air with you right here, and the entire team standing by for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
And David, thank you so much. I'm Kira Phillips. We do continue our breaking news coverage. Charlie Kirk's accused killer, Tyler Robinson, charged with aggravated murder, and Utah's District Attorney Jeffrey Gray says he will seek the death penalty. We are now learning so many more details from Robinson's mother, his roommate, his text messages, and it's all chilling. Robinson messaging his roommate, with whom he refers to as my love, telling him he used his grandfather's rifle to carry out that shooting that killed Charlie Kirk. Robinson's mother telling police that her son had recently become more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. When asked why he did it, Robinson allegedly said that there is too much evil and referenced Kirk, saying he spreads too much hate. Let's get straight to our whole team of experts now. Pierre Thomas, our chief justice correspondent. We'll start with you. I am just astounded at how many details that we received this early on this investigation from the district attorney. So much to talk about, Pierre. So many details that we learned from the mother, from the father, what they told police, to these text messages is just riveting, and it's sad.
In fact, that's what I just said a few moments ago, Kira, that this press conference was riveting in its sadness. From the way they described the way that Mr. Kirk died, how dangerous it was for the crowd, the fact that the bullet that killed Mr. Kirk whizzed by the head of the person who was asking him the question, how it was close to others, that there were children in the crowd. Then we learned new details about the DNA evidence that they believe ties him to the scene, that there's DNA evidence from Tyler Robinson, according to authorities, on the trigger of the murder weapon that was recovered near the scene, that there's DNA evidence on the cartridges, but also this riveting, sad ordeal of the mother and father seeing the released image of their son and not shrinking away from it, saying, that looks like him. And the mother calls the son, and he says, no, I was out sick both today and yesterday. And then she doesn't leave it there. She turns to her husband and said, that looks like our son. The father agrees. He ends up, confronting his son, which all ends up in a family friend who is associated with the U.S. Marshals getting involved, and then him being turned in. And then, as you said, the messages to the roommate, which many will believe is really critical to establishing that he did it, according to authorities, laying out the sequence of events that had happened, and also they are far along the line, as far as we can tell, in terms of motive. They believe that this is somehow tied to his belief that Charlie Kirk was sowing hate.
Pierre, thank you. Let's bring in our Matt Gutman now, who was there in the room when the charges were being read. And Matt, you just heard what Pierre had to say. I was listening to you earlier on the network, just detailing the back and forth of these messages with Tyler Robinson and his roommate, and then hearing more from Robinson's mother and father, and even learning about this rifle and what the parents had said about this had been a gift. And then in the text messages, Tyler Robinson talking about it was his grandfather's rifle, and then going into details about what he did to these details he was relaying to his partner about the weapon and why he did what he did, and his how he planned this all out. I mean, it's just, there was so much we didn't know that we now know, and it's just heartbreaking, Matt.
It is. It's heartbreaking on so many levels, Kira. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was murdered brutally in front of a crowd of thousands of people who watched him being shot through the neck and then essentially bleed out in front of him. And I think one of the things that the attorney here made a very fine point about is that a lot of these charges, 7 charges, were aggravated because children were present. Children witnessed this. Children were put in harm's way. And that was something that obviously is aggravating here, and that's one of the reasons that the suspect, in addition to the alleged murder being political in nature, is facing the death penalty. They're going for the death penalty. And on the other hand, there is this duality of a portrait of a very human person, a very human experience from this entire family. As you mentioned it, the mother who essentially discovered that it was her son who had done this, the kid who had got a 34 out of 36 on the ACTs, who had a 4.0, who got a full ride to college here, that kid was the one who allegedly perpetrated. She saw those pictures and said, identified him essentially. And then those text messages, and I don't think I've ever experienced a press conference in which we've read text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparent apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet on the other hand, so touching. Right, with the suspect reaching out to his roommate, who is allegedly his boyfriend, who we understand, identified as male at birth, now identifies as female. And the terminology he used, he was trying to protect him. He kept calling him my love. My reason for doing this is to protect you, but also asking him to delete the messages and not speak to law enforcement. So there's this heartbreaking duality that we're seeing very tragically playing out here. And again, one of the things that also struck me was the degree to which that this group here, the prosecutor's office in Utah County, is trying to play this by the book. The degree to which the Department of Public Safety in Utah has been keeping the information close to invest, trying to play it by the book, as opposed to the FBI and FBI Director Kash Patel, who has been way out in front of these law enforcement organizations and revealing pretty significant amount of evidence that we heard about today. The note, the self-incriminating text messages, the DNA on the firearm. These are all things that the attorney told me he would have hoped to have been able to have more of a tight lid on, but didn't have the option. His important goal is to make sure that this process goes smoothly and that the suspect here gets a fair trial and is presumed innocent until the jury proves otherwise, if they intend to do that. Kira.
And Matt, it sounds like as well, according to the parents and what they told authorities, that Tyler Robinson had even said he planned on taking his own life after this happened, and the parents convinced him to come home.
Yeah, it seems like he, again, from the text messages, we have no independent confirmation of this, but it seems that he appeared to be suicidal after he realized that he was checkmated, that there was no escape for him, that his mother wanted him to turn himself in, as did his father. That was his lot. And what was also interesting about the initial text messages with that boyfriend/roommate was that he thought he could escape. He thought that nobody would be able to figure out who did this, that he could have perpetrated the perfect crime. And then you see this sort of unfold in real time, that he realizes he couldn't get back to his weapon and that the incriminating information was on the weapon and that law enforcement was right around it. And then it devolves into this increasing depression and eventually into his family saying that he apparently tried or had hoped or expressed a desire to take his own life. Obviously, they dissuaded him. Kira.
Matt Gutman, appreciate your reporting so much. Let's take it to Eric Faddis now, former felony prosecutor. Eric, Tyler Robinson now facing the death penalty. What comes next?
Yes, so the ground on which he's facing the death penalty is this aggravated murder charge, where the prosecution's alleging that he created a grave risk of harm to other people. And so, the bullet could have hit somebody else. This could have caused a stampede. I think that ground is pretty solid. From there, at a jury trial phase, the jury will have to determine whether the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating factors. So the prosecution says this political violence piece, that's aggravating. The fact that it happened in front of other children, that's aggravating. Defense is going to argue that, hey, this guy likely had no significant criminal history. He was a younger person. And so ultimately the jury's going to have to decide, do those aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating factors? And is death appropriate in this case?
As an attorney, Eric, what did you make of the district attorney and how he outlined so many details, from what Tyler Robinson's mother and father told them to these detailed messages between Robinson and his roommate, his partner?
I think, Kira, in part, it was an important exercise in transparency. We've seen kind of a social push towards transparency with the Epstein files. Director Patel is being grilled in a hearing presently. And so I think that's what the public wants. They want to know more information about what happened. And this county attorney really delved into the details here, talking about not only those messages, but also an alleged note showing an intent, DNA evidence, surveillance video. He really covered the whole gamut of summarizing the prosecution's evidence in the case. And so far, according to that list, it appears rather compelling.
Eric, thank you. Let's take it now to our contributor and attorney, Brian Buckmeyer. But before, of course, facing the death penalty comes this preliminary hearing, I understand. Brian, let's talk about what happens there.
Yeah, so in some states, unlike in New York, we have a grand jury where a panel of 16 to 23 people will hear the information and decide on the felony charges and some of the misdemeanors whether or not there should be an indictment. Utah differs slightly. Instead, what we're going to have is a preliminary hearing, an actual hearing before a judge where the prosecution will have the opportunity to present information and the defense will actually have an opportunity to push back in some regards in cross-examination. And what the ultimate goal here for the prosecution is to show by a preponderance of the evidence, or the less legalese term, is to show whether it's more likely than not that this individual committed the crime and that they're the actual individual who did so as well. And so we're going to get a lot more information than we saw in this presser, kind of diving deeper into some of the facts that show that, for example, the DNA is, as is alleged, to be connected to the shooter, that the shooter did commit this crime with the purposes of killing Charlie Kirk, as well as the impetus in terms of the political backing, as the prosecutors already put forward, as well as the danger, which I think is pretty obvious to everyone as to how other people could have been harmed. And they're going to march through all 7 of these different counts to try to prove all of them so they can move towards a trial and ultimately, as you pointed out earlier with the guest, move towards a death penalty eligible conviction.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Let's take it to our Jacqueline Lee, who's still there in Utah. Jacqueline, you've been talking so much about the community and how it is clearly going through mourning, just the flowers and honoring Charlie Kirk there on campus. Tell us more about now that we have heard from the district attorney. We know what the criminal counts are. What's the type of response you've been hearing?
Well, Kira, I mean, ever since the shooting took place, there have been hundreds of people that have arrived at the university to pay their respects to Charlie Kirk. We've seen them bring flowers, put signs, and we've seen many people sobbing at that memorial, discussing how much Charlie Kirk meant to them. The other thing, and we heard this from the Utah County Attorney, is just how dangerous this entire shooting was. There were thousands of people who were very close to Charlie Kirk when that one single shot rang out, and he emphasized that in the press conference. Other people could have gotten injured, and they also, when they talked about those added charges, doing the shooting in front of children. Something else that we spoke about is people want, some people here, they want justice for Charlie Kirk. And I think that really speaks volumes about when we hear from the attorney here and we read these text messages that we have been talking about, it really kind of shed light on the motivation behind this shooting, the alleged motivation. Because, for example, in these text messages with Robinson saying, "I had enough of this hatred." So the community here obviously devastated all around with what happened, as we heard from Matt Gutman earlier, also seeing this intimate exchange between the suspect and the partner. I think a lot of people are just devastated from everything that has occurred. Kira.
Yeah, indeed. I think the entire country is devastated, but what has taken place there on the campus. Jacqueline, thank you. Luke Barr, reporter for Justice as well. Luke, you've been following the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. He's been criticized, of course, throughout this investigation from the day the shooting happened, when he was putting out incorrect information on Twitter. Now he is before the committee there on the Hill, got grilled by lawmakers today.
Yeah, he sure did, Kira. And he said in that hearing specifically about this shooting that they're, quote, still mapping out who, if anyone, was involved as an accomplice. He said the investigation is ongoing. And then he also confirmed that the FBI is looking at those who were involved in a Discord chat. The FBI said that they're going to be investigating anyone, quote, and everyone involved in that Discord chat that the alleged shooter was a part of and was allegedly posting in shortly after the shooting took place. He said, quote, "There are a lot more than 20 people linked to Robinson on Discord, and we're running all of them down, every single one." And Kira, it's unclear when the federal government would bring charges against Robinson. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, told our Pierre Thomas yesterday they're coming, unclear when.
All right, Luke Barr, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that we had a chance to talk to. Appreciate it so much. You know, political violence took Charlie Kirk's life. We've been talking about this, and that's still, the rhetoric hasn't toned down at all. The blame game is still getting more and more heated every day. And President Trump now says he's actually going to crack down on left-wing groups, saying he's 100% considering designating Antifa as a domestic terror organization. But we know that political violence is happening on both sides of the political aisle. You have Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, a Democrat and recent victim of political violence himself. He's trying to de-escalate all the hype just months after his home was set on fire in that alleged attempted political assassination. Listen to what he was saying out of Pittsburgh.
There are some who will hear that selective condemnation and take it as a permission slip to commit more violence, so long as it suits their narrative or only targets the other side. Let me be clear, violence is never okay, regardless of the motivation. Violence is never the answer. And we cannot allow violence to be used as a pretext for more violence.
And all the political back and forth comes as that special election is underway now in Minnesota to fill the seat of assassinated former Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman. Hortman and her husband were murdered in their home in June. Police say the suspect had a hit list with dozens of Democratic lawmakers and abortion providers. For more, let's bring in former Secret Service agent and ABC News contributor Don Mihalik. So, Don, as someone who has dedicated your life to providing security for top government officials, what do you think about President Trump blaming the left for the growing political violence while downplaying the radical right?
Well, I don't think that you can blame any one side. I think it's across the board right now. We're seeing political violence coming from every corner because of a lot of the divisive talk we're hearing. And I think the political rhetoric is emboldening